You will spend 26 years of your life unconscious, not relaxing, not thinking, not dreaming of anything useful, just gone. A third of your entire existence, erased. And every single morning, your body forces you back into it, whether you want to go or not. Scientists have spent decades trying to understand why, and the answer they keep finding is deeply unsettling. Because sleep, as far as we can tell, shouldn't need to exist. Every hour you spend asleep is an hour you can't find food, can't protect yourself, can't reproduce. Evolution doesn't keep things that don't earn their place. So, why did it keep this, and what would happen if it hadn't? Here's what almost nobody tells you. We don't actually know why we sleep. Not fully. We have theories. Strong ones, backed by decades of research. But the complete picture, the unified explanation that ties every function of sleep into a single reason, doesn't exist yet. And that gap, that hole in our understanding of something we do every single night of our lives, is one of the most revealing things about what sleep actually is. Because the harder scientists look, the more they find. And the more they find, the stranger the answer becomes. Let's start with what we do know, because it's extraordinary. In 2013, a team of researchers at the University of Rochester made a discovery that changed neuroscience. Maiken Nedergaard and her team found something hidden inside the sleeping brain that nobody had seen before. A system, a network of channels that opens up almost exclusively during sleep and floods the brain with cerebrospinal fluid. They called it the Glymphatic System, and what it does is remarkable. While you sleep, your brain shrinks by roughly 60%, not permanently. Just enough to open up space between cells. And through those spaces, the glymphatic system pumps fluid through your brain like a washing machine, clearing out the metabolic waste that builds up during the day. Proteins, toxins, cellular debris. The kind of buildup that, if left uncleaned, begins to damage brain tissue. One of the proteins it clears is called beta amyloid. You may have heard of it. Beta amyloid is the same protein that accumulates in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. The same toxic buildup that slowly dismantles memory, identity, and the ability to recognize your own family, and your brain clears it every single night while you sleep. Think about what that means. Sleep isn't passive, it is the most active maintenance your brain performs. The entire day, your neurons are working, firing, building up waste, and every night, your brain has a narrow window to clean itself. Miss that window consistently, and the damage begins to accumulate. Not immediately, not dramatically, slowly. The way rust spreads through metal, you can't see. This is why sleep deprivation does what it does. It's not just tiredness, it's the biological equivalent of never cleaning a wound. In 1965, a 17-year-old named Randy Gardner decided to stay awake for as long as he possibly could. Not for science, for a school science fair. By day 2, his eyes couldn't focus. By day 4, he couldn't read. By day 6, he was standing in his backyard convinced he was a famous football player. By day 9, his short-term memory had essentially stopped functioning. He could begin a sentence and forget what he was saying before he reached the end of it. By day 11, 264 hours without a single minute of sleep, he stood at a press conference, answered every question calmly, and walked to bed. He slept for 14 hours and woke up fine. But here's what the researchers who monitored him found. His brain hadn't actually been awake for 11 days. Parts of it had been going offline and coming back in rotating shifts, a process scientists now call local sleep. Individual clusters of neurons were shutting down briefly, microsleeping even while Gardner appeared to be awake and functioning. His brain was stealing sleep in fragments because it had no other choice. Your brain doesn't experience sleep as optional. It experiences it the way your lungs experience air, and the effects of deprivation go far beyond the brain. After 72 hours without sleep, the human immune system begins to collapse. Natural killer cells, the cells responsible for identifying and destroying cancer cells and viral invaders, drop in number by over 70%. Your body's first line of defense dismantled in 3 days. In 1989, researchers discovered a rare genetic condition called fatal familial insomnia, a mutation in a single protein. It causes the brain to progressively lose the ability to sleep. First, the patient stops sleeping deeply, then they stop sleeping at all. Within 12 to 18 months, every patient dies. Not from any external cause, from the inability to sleep itself. The body, it turns out, can survive almost anything except the sustained absence of this one thing. But the glymphatic system is only one piece of this, because sleep doesn't just clean your brain, it builds it. Matthew Walker, neuroscientist and sleep researcher at UC Berkeley, spent years documenting what happens to memory during sleep. What he found found rewrote how we understand learning itself. During the day, your hippocampus, the brain's short-term memory hub, acts like a temporary inbox. It captures experiences, conversations, information, and holds them in a fragile, easily disrupted state, like notes written in pencil. During sleep, specifically during the deep, slow wave phases of sleep, the brain does something extraordinary. It replays the day's experiences, not randomly, selectively. It identifies which memories are worth keeping, strips them of unnecessary emotional weight, and transfers them into the cortex for long-term storage. It converts the pencil notes into something permanent. Walker found that students who slept after studying retained 40% more information than students who stayed awake. Not because sleep added something, because without sleep, the brain cannot complete the process that makes learning stick. But it goes further. During REM sleep, the phase where most dreaming occurs, the brain doesn't just store memories, it connects them. It runs patterns across everything you've ever learned and looks for relationships you didn't consciously notice. This is where insight comes from. This is where the solution to the problem you went to sleep thinking about appears in the morning. Thomas Edison napped compulsively. He would sit in a chair holding a steel ball in each hand. The moment he fell asleep, the balls would drop, the noise would wake him, and he'd immediately write down whatever his brain had been working on at the edge of sleep. He called it the genius gap, the liminal state between waking and sleep, where the unconscious mind makes connections the conscious mind can't reach. Paul McCartney heard the melody of Yesterday in a dream. Dmitri Mendeleev saw the structure of the periodic table in one. The list is not coincidental. It is the documented output of a brain doing something it can only do when the conscious, controlling, linear part of you gets out of the way. Sleep is not downtime. Sleep is when your brain does its most important work. So now ask the real question. What if none of this had evolved? What if, somewhere in our deep evolutionary history, the mutation that made sleep necessary simply hadn't happened? What if humans had developed as creatures that never needed to stop? The first answer is obvious. We would have more time. 26 extra years of waking life per person. Civilizations that never had to pause. Factories that never went dark. A species that could work, create, communicate, and build without interruption. It sounds like an advantage, but walk it back further. Without sleep, there is no glymphatic clearance. Beta amyloid and other toxic proteins accumulate in the brain from the first days of life. Within decades, possibly within years, the cognitive deterioration that we associate with extreme old age would arrive early. A species without sleep would likely be a species with rapidly degrading minds. Without sleep, memory consolidation doesn't happen. You could learn something, but the next day it would begin to fade. Not slowly. Completely. Every experience you had would exist only in that fragile, temporary, short-term state. Never transferred, never permanent. You would be a species capable of experiencing things, but fundamentally unable to build on them. Think about what that means for civilization. Civilization is accumulated knowledge. One generation learns something and passes it down. The next generation builds on it. That accumulation, that stack of inherited understanding, is the entire engine of human progress. Without the biological mechanism that makes memory permanent, that stack doesn't build. Each generation starts from close to zero. Language might not develop beyond the most basic forms. Written knowledge helps, but it cannot replace what the sleeping brain does automatically every night, binding experience into the architecture of the self. And without REM sleep, without that connective dreaming state where your brain finds patterns across everything it knows, there is no insight, no sudden solution, no creative leap. The kind of thinking that produced the periodic table, that heard a melody in silence, that imagined the structure of DNA, that kind of thinking requires a brain that has spent time in the dark, connecting things that waking logic would never put together. A species without sleep might be a species without discovery, without art, without the particular quality of human thought that has no name, but that you recognize immediately when you encounter it, the thought that seems to come from somewhere deeper than logic. Here's what is strange about all of this. We live in a world that treats sleep like a weakness, like an inconvenience, like something to be minimized, optimized, hacked. Entire industries exist to help you need less of it. Entire cultures celebrate the people who claim they barely do it. But what the science keeps finding, every time researchers look deeper, is that sleep is not the absence of life. It is the condition that makes life possible at all. Your brain cleans itself while you sleep. It builds your memories while you sleep. It connects your ideas while you sleep. It repairs the damage the day caused while you sleep. It is, by almost every measure, the most important thing your body does. We didn't evolve sleep because we ran out of things to do at night. We evolved it because the version of us that didn't sleep couldn't think clearly enough to survive, couldn't remember well enough to learn, couldn't dream well enough to create. The 26 years you will spend unconscious are not 26 years lost. They are the 26 years that make the other 52 possible. Every night when you close your eyes, your brain doesn't stop. It gets to work. And if this made you think differently about what's happening inside you, you'll want to watch our last video. We asked what would happen if humans never developed fear. It's on your screen right now. I'll see you there.